Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to Coruscant Radio Underground here on the Science Fictionary. I'm
Woo woo.
Andrew, and I'm still Marisha.
Still Marisha. Last time I checked.
Last time I checked. Don't turn into anybody else, that'd be weird.
It's true. It would be weird.
It would.
It would be very weird.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars Celebration. We had intended to do streams during Celebration, but I was laying on a sofa thinking I was dying at that point in time, so
Spoiler alert.
I didn't die.
We're glad.
I'm not a reanimated corpse.
That would be worrisome.
Yeah.
That would not be cool. But if you were a reanimated corpse, I still wouldn't have to worry about like being single. I mean,
and you wouldn't have to buy Halloween decorations.
It's true. It could be a thing. But alas, Andrew did not die. He's not reanimated. Here in the flesh, the original flesh.
I want to make sure everybody sees the logo in the corner here. I don't know.
Celebration to New Orleans.
This is what we're pushing for. And at this point, it'll be a few years before it's even possible with the next Star Wars Celebration going to Japan.
It's true.
What do you think about that?
I think it's probably due. And I've kind of mentioned this, I think, on the Science Fictionary, but having two consecutive celebrations overseas, I'm not saying that all of their fan base is American, but they're an American company. I was a little surprised that they had 3 celebrations back to back in the States and then 2 back to back overseas. It seems like it would have been like, Florida, London, California, Japan, Chicago, like break it up a little bit.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't really know how they go about determining some of that stuff. They were definitely due to hold it in Japan.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been a really long time since it's
a big fan base there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people were real upset. I can't afford to go to Japan. It's like, yeah, most of us can't.
Well, most of the Japanese fans can't afford to come to Anaheim, so now we're even.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's the thing. They hold it in different places for different people to be able to attend. It's
right.
It's different than other conventions. It's not
sure.
Because other conventions aren't worried about traveling around, and they're trying to make it easier for fans in different parts of the country to make it, and that's why I think it's they're due to have it either here or have it in New Orleans or have it in Atlanta.
Yeah.
One of the two. That both places have a facility plenty big enough. They're both great host cities.
Mm-hmm.
New Orleans is one of the best event cities in the world.
Yeah, and I'm a little surprised. Have they ever had one in New York or anywhere on the Eastern Seaboard?
In Chicago.
Chicago.
Well, it's Midwest.
That's the Midwest, yeah.
That's probably. I mean, like Orlando is the East Coast, but
yeah, but that's like way.
I don't know that they have. It seems like there was one. I'm not I'm not well versed on the history of Star Wars Celebration. It's been around a lot longer than most people realize.
Yeah, since the prequels, since the prequel era, they've been having celebrations. Pretty sure.
Oh, I think that's when it caught on. Yeah, Celebration 1, May 1999.
Oh, April 30th through May 2nd. So they've always kind of leaned into.
No, it's always been this time of year.
They've always leaned into the whole Easter thing. And we kind of had a conversation with some other people online, just about the fact that it's always over Easter. Like, honestly,
it's always near Easter. It doesn't always fall on Easter.
Now, has it not fallen
next
on Easter?
The one in Japan's not on Easter. I already looked at the date. It's not on Easter.
Okay.
It's just that when you hold it that time of year, there's at least some percentage of a chance that it's going to fall on Easter. If you hold it in April, there's a chance it's going to fall on Easter.
Yeah. Don't care to crunch the numbers on exactly what chance, but
no. But I mean, it is what it is. I think the next one, I think after Japan, they're going to come back to Orlando.
Yeah.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it only in the future rotated between Orlando, Anaheim, London, and Japan. I mean, you hit East Coast, West Coast, Europe and Asia. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the future of Celebration. Although I will say, I saw pictures from Star Wars Celebration London, and I'm very glad I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind crowds, but that was a bit much.
Yeah.
Like,
it was very, very crowded.
I would be unhappy if I paid that much to go to a convention and was crammed in there that bad.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it's an expensive convention, especially if you're traveling to
Well, that's the thing, is most people are traveling to these, and they are expensive conventions. And they're generally held in expensive host cities. Right. Orlando's an expensive city. Anaheim is an incredibly expensive city. I mean, even if they had it in New Orleans is an expensive city, mostly because cities that size, just the taxes on hotels, the entertainment taxes and stuff on hotels alone is astronomical. But I think it should be in New Orleans. I can't imagine a better city where it's never been to host the Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah, I agree.
By the way, this logo, if you are interested, this logo, both with the Star Wars Celebration text and without, so just the Fleur-de-Lis and Rebellion logo, are on our TeePublic page.
It's true.
I don't know exactly how long they will survive there.
Especially since that one says
Star Wars. The Star Wars Celebration one, like, it's pretty specific, but the logo one, actually, I think the logo one is one of the better shirts on our page.
Yeah, I like it.
And there's no text on it; it's just that logo, and I think it's a good looking shirt. But again, I don't know. I don't know if that's something they will pull down or not, but I suspect it is.
It's very possible. It could happen.
But it's only half the logo.
It's true. It's true. Maybe the algorithm hasn't caught it yet.
Yeah, I think somebody'd have to report it.
Yeah.
I don't think the algorithm, either algorithms are going to catch that. But either way. So let's jump into just talking about Star Wars Celebration. It had a lot of announcements. Before we get into this year's announcements, I was at Star Wars Celebration last year. There were a lot of announcements.
There were.
Now, most of those announcements came to fruition. All the TV stuff has stayed on track, even though some of it's been delayed. And they didn't really announce a movie last year. But this is the thing, is people have lost faith in Lucasfilm, and not just the normal people that just hate Lucasfilm or hate Disney Lucasfilm under the Disney banner. You're just your normal. I'm talking to just kind of average fans who don't follow all this crap,
right?
Who have quit even trying to keep up with what's coming movie-wise.
Because why?
Because why? Because they keep making announcements and it keeps not happening. And we have 3 new movie announcements. Now, to be fair, Kathleen Kennedy is insistent that the Rian Johnson trilogy is still happening eventually, or they want it to happen. She's not saying it's gonna happen. She's saying we still would love to work with Rian Johnson, but he's very busy. Taika Waititi is still writing. Now, Taika did say back last fall that that when he finished Thor: Love and Thunder, that he was going home. He was actually going back to New Zealand to work on writing his Star Wars project. Right. That he would spend this summer writing his Star Wars project. So that's great. But she basically said Taika's still writing his movie. Taika works very slowly. That was basically her comment on that.
Yeah.
She says that the Patty Jenkins thing is still a potential project. Which is that was the one that was the just most baffling, because you actually had this announcement.
Big announcement. Expensive announcement.
What a really cool announcement.
Yeah.
got a lot of people really, really hyped.
Mm-hmm.
She did mention that it could still come to fruition either as a series or a movie. So, which means they're not working on it. They're still kind of, it's still
Yeah.
on the table
Mm-hmm.
as something that could happen. And the truth is that there's so much Star Wars stuff in the cycle. There's also, I'm discovering there are a lot of news sources. I saw this a lot with Andor. Was probably the place where this occurred the most. There are like news sources that are supposed to be reliable, legitimate news sources. It happened with Kenobi too.
Mm-hmm.
They're just making crap up.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, just absolutely making stuff up.
Yeah. Oh, they've completely. Now, Kenobi is
Well,
one.
love interests and things like that. And it's like, no, none of that stuff ever happened. There's all this stuff out there that says that Kenobi was originally supposed to be a story with Luke, and maybe that's true. But there were with Obi-Wan and Luke, but like that really didn't make a lot of sense to do that.
No.
It really didn't make sense. Bringing Leia in made a lot more sense. I think doing a story with Luke was going to be real problematic, and I don't know if they ever explored that or not. I'm sure somebody mentioned it, but there are people that act like it was just totally. Somebody said no, we're not doing that. We're going to do Leia instead of Luke. I don't know how you could have done a story with Luke and Obi-Wan together and it not have created a problem down the road.
Yeah.
And that's not to say, oh, Obi-Wan was a perfect series. It was a flawed series.
I did like it.
I liked it fine, but it just wasn't.
Yeah.
It didn't live up to
all the years of hope we had for it.
Right.
And honestly, that was my biggest disappointment about Kenobi was how long I was so excited about that project.
Yeah, and the thing with Kenobi, I think that it mostly told an okay story. There was some weird editing.
No,
there were weird continuity issues with it. Like somebody was just asleep at the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you work on shows, you know everybody on sets like got something to do with continuity.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's someone who's supposed to be like the grand master of keeping it all in order.
Yep.
That person was clearly asleep at the wheel on Kenobi.
Either that or they just.
Or the writing was just so bad that there was no continuity
in the writing. Or the writing was.
Well, that's something that's actually come up with the strike.
Yeah, actually. And that's a really interesting point because, I've been seeing writers saying things like, yeah, do you notice continuity issues with your favorite shows? Yeah, that's because we wrote it all in 3 days. Basically,
not because we wanted to.
Right, not because we wanted to, because they gave us 3, like getting a group of writers together and giving them a weekend to plot out an entire season of a show.
Yeah.
And then being like, we'll fix it later. That makes sense with some of the things we've been seeing. From a lot of different places. Things that's like, why didn't somebody flag this? Why didn't somebody fix this? How did this get through? And I've also been on sets where you say, this is a problem. Doesn't matter. We've got to film this today. Move on.
Yeah. Which is why, but I think this is also why some of the best stuff on TV right now is where the actors that are running the show are also the head writers, like Mythic Quest. Mythic Quest is an excellent show. I didn't even realize that somehow I missed because we didn't have Apple for a while, and I missed that the third season came out. The next to last episode of that season is one of the best episodes of TV I've watched in a really long time. Ted Lasso is the same thing. Ted Lasso's kind of all over the place this season. And a lot of people aren't happy with it, actually. They feel like it's lost some of its charm. And I don't feel like it's lost its charm. No. I just feel like we went from Ted. We were viewing everyone's story through Ted's perspective, and now we're kind of telling too many stories. I think that's the problem with it. Everybody that's getting a piece of the story is not in Ted's immediate circle anymore.
Right.
So Ted doesn't have anything to do with several pieces of the story. So I think that's the real problem. We're just getting not enough Ted Lasso in Ted Lasso.
Right.
But he's the head. He runs that show. It's his show. So he made that decision. So whatever. But I feel like those shows are doing the best jobs of storytelling where you have someone where the actors really invested in the writing.
Right. Yeah.
Because of these other things, they're rushing them.
Yeah, especially streaming.
They don't want to pay them for more than like a weekend. Like, hey, you come in this weekend and write this show.
And we may send you some random freelance, like, hey, fix this. Like, that's a crazy way to write a TV show. Like, no writer's room.
Yeah, and of course the big gripes with this is coming from the streaming services.
Yes.
But where they're just wanting to cut corners.
Mm-hmm.
And so Disney certainly falls into the category of a streaming service at this point.
I mean, these are really similar issues to the IATSE strike,
Yeah.
A couple of years ago that was impending and didn't actually the union didn't wind up striking, but it was like that close.
Yeah. I like how some of the some of the studios are out there saying, oh, this strike won't affect the consumer. Bull crap.
So I saw one of the actors from Heroes on Twitter earlier, and he was like, I was on Twitter in 2008. Tell me again how writer strikes don't make a difference, basically.
Right. It ruined that show.
Absolutely.
One of the best shows on TV, and the strike ruined it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only good thing the last strike gave us was Dr. Horrible sing-along blog.
That's true. Yeah. I referenced that a few days ago. Apparently my audience was too young to get that reference.
The Dr. Horrible?
I was like, well, I mean, at least we got Dr. Horrible out of the last writer's strike, and they just all went.
Yeah, no, nobody. I've talked to several people. I got everything set up to do watch parties, and then we just never got around to it. But that was first on the list to doing a watch party because nobody knew it. But it was like you had to I think you had to be really keyed into a pretty specific fandom to know about that.
That's possible.
There's no digital release of it. It was not on any streaming platforms.
Is it on YouTube or something, or on their website? Is it webisodes, huh?
Yeah, it might have been webisodes. I have it on DVD, and now it's on some. You can buy it on a couple of streaming platforms.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very niche.
Yeah.
And so if
that's
you
one
weren't,
that we definitely
we knew about it because at the time we were really
into Firefly.
Well, into Firefly, kind of part of the Joss Whedon fandom and Nathan Fillion in particular. So because it had some of our favorite, it has Felicia Day, it has Neil Patrick Harris, it has Nathan Fillion. And a couple of others in there. Simon Hilberg from
Big Bang Theory.
From Big Bang Theory is in it.
Moist, right?
Yeah, he plays Moist. I mean, there are a number of really, really fun characters. It was basically just his circle of people before Joss Whedon fell out of everyone's favor.
It's
now everybody was we don't want Firefly and just Joss Whedon's involved, and it's well, yeah, you're not getting Firefly then, and that might be for the better, but
yeah, it's a shame because he's a really talented individual, but apparently
he is, but he's sort of 2008 Joss Whedon is very different than 2020 Joss Whedon.
That's true.
He is a totally different person.
Mm-hmm.
It's he's just one of those people that got so bitter. His characters, I don't think he could create characters like Buffy or Malcolm Reynolds anymore. I don't. Yeah. I don't think that's. I think his worldview has changed so severely.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've strayed a really long ways from Star Wars here.
All that to say, a bunch of the stuff that was announced at the last celebration is still it's gonna be a thing someday. They announced the Acolyte at last celebration.
Well, that was the one before. The Acolyte's been floating around out there forever. The Acolyte is one of the longest
gestating
projects.
Except Kenobi, that one was a really long.
Well, we don't really know when they officially started working on Kenobi.
Well, it was a very long rumored project.
It's been rumored for like 10 years. Like it was probably rumored back before, even before the Disney acquisition.
Yeah,
so
true.
I don't know. I said when these were announced, I mean, of course, the immediate reaction, this is where we were going with this. The immediate reaction from a lot of people I know was,
yeah, whatever.
Whatever, you know.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't blame them.
No.
But when I saw it, I went, okay, they announced 3 movies that we're going to get into in a minute across a vast stretch of time. So pre-Old Republic, Mandalorian era, so post Jedi era, and then 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker. So we announced basically something for everyone. And I said, this is them dialing back, saying we have to make movies. We've got to get something out. Looking at 3 projects that appeal to a broad fan base and saying, this is what we're going to do. And I really feel like this is on the heels of Bob Iger coming back. And, you know, Bob Iger is under a lot of pressure to get this stuff back on track. Like Disney just had a massive loss in the last quarter of subscribers.
Yeah. Now,
people blamed The Mandalorian season 3 and all kinds of other things. Well, it turns out like it was because they had the right to stream live, I think, cricket matches in India, which you can imagine that's a massive fan base, right? Well, they lost that contract. Somebody else won, because those things bid every year. So new season of, you only get that contract for so many seasons. Well, they lost it. So they lost all those subscribers that only had it to watch cricket matches. Oh, wow. and that's normal. Yeah. Like the companies that deal, like, honestly, I wish Disney wouldn't deal in that stuff for Disney Plus, like, because it's volatile. I mean, Fox and ABC and NBC and CBS have been playing in the sports market forever, and they constantly, it's like, well, this one lost the Super Bowl, and, you know, the Super Bowl is going to this network for the next 5 years. That's a huge hit. Super Bowl is one of the biggest watched programs of the year.
Yeah, maybe the most watched, at least in the States.
Yeah. So, you know, that's a huge loss, and it kind of makes you go, why is Disney Plus, like, why weren't you doing this with Hulu or one of the others like that? And it was because Disney, I would assume, I haven't looked at our bill in a while, but I think Disney Plus is the most expensive of the 3 subscription services.
Probably.
But you had ESPN Plus.
Right.
Why is this not on ESPN Plus?
Yeah, that would make a lot more sense.
Like, I have ESPN Plus because I get to watch football games that otherwise aren't on TV. And usually that's the teams that I'm looking to watch.
Right.
I don't know. It was an odd choice.
Yeah, that's crazy.
ESPN Plus might not be available in India. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the reason was, but that caused a huge loss. But I said, when this happened, when they announced these 3 movies, I said, they can't cancel these. They have to make these 3 happen, because I think you've reached a point, and I said that because casual fans are starting to complain about canceling of movies, and why has it been so long since there's been a movie.
Yep.
And so I said, this is what Bob Iger came in and said, figure it out, give me 3 movies, and let's get this on schedule. And I feel like that's what he said, that's what they came up with, and you can't, there's no way out. And then the freaking writer's strike happened. And I went, well, now all bets are off, because now you have a valid excuse to say, well, we had to scrap that one or push it back 2 years or.
Yeah. And not to mention,
the thing is, they knew this writer's strike was going to happen when they made the announcement.
That's why there hadn't been any work for the past 9 months.
Yeah.
Because everybody's seen this coming down the pipe. They've been, I don't know. And the thing is, why did they announce these things when this is impending? They knew this was coming. Why did they make these huge announcements?
Yeah.
Because they had Celebration, they had to announce something. But people are going to get really disenchanted because, okay, so we went to Celebration
6 years ago.
2016? 17.
It had to be 17. It was
Yeah,
6 years
17.
ago.
And everybody was pissed because they didn't announce anything at
Well, they
Celebration.
didn't really announce anything last year. Everybody's like, oh, they announced so much. It's like, oh, they showed us little bits and pieces of things that we knew were coming, had known for years or months or even years.
Yeah.
And it's like, I even keep seeing, it's weird. It's like Disney announces or Lucasfilm announces this TV show. And it's like, we knew about that TV show 6 months ago. What are y'all talking about?
But there was a lot of complaints that year because they didn't announce anything.
Yeah.
They showed Last Jedi footage, and that was pretty much it. They showed.
Well, we got a trailer for Last Jedi.
A trailer for their Last Jedi. They showed footage from the first season of The Mandalorian, or was it
something?
Clone Wars.
It might have been Rebels season. Or yeah, it could have been Clone Wars season 7.
Yeah, I think it was Clone Wars.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
And then literally they announced Kenobi like 2 weeks later. Just like, hey everybody, and everybody's like, why did they announce this at Celebration? And so there was like, no, why don't they announce things? And then they're like, all right, they give the people what they want. They start making announcements at Celebration. And then they just sort of fizzle. Not all of them, but a significant portion of something that they announced at a major event.
Yeah.
A significant number of those projects have fizzled.
Well, they also acted like we're doing this and we're doing that, and it's like we're going to do. So there were a number of announcements that never actually came through official channels.
Okay.
The Benioff and Weiss trilogy. I don't recall Lucasfilm. Like, they were definitely never denied it, but I don't remember official channel announcements on that. But I mean, you still had, even with the stuff that they're still saying, oh, it's in the works, there's still so many canceled.
How do you okay, the Taika Waititi project. Why do you announce a Taika Waititi project whenever the man hasn't even written a script yet?
Well, that's the thing. They keep writing. None of this stuff's written.
Like, why do you make major announcements for things that haven't even been written yet?
Yeah. I think there's pressure to announce, but it's.
But the people's getting tired of this song and dance. Now, we got Ahsoka. We have, we've gotten some of the things.
Now they did say that I can't even remember who's directing it or writing, who's running it. I think it's the writer from, or the showrunner from Ms. Marvel is doing the Rey movie. Mm-hmm. I think I saw an announcement that one's like 75-80% written.
Okay, well that's good. That's a good sign.
And then the Filoni project, which is the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, all that's going to be their Avengers film.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one's. I'm not that worried about the.
No, I'm not worried about that one because I know that.
He's not doing anything else.
Well, he's already fleshing that story out, doing what he's doing. So it's not written yet. It's just because we're still waiting for all the pieces to fall in place. Mm-hmm. That one is still in process of being written.
On the other hand,
now the first one, the one that has the most high-end potential. Mm-hmm. This is the one that has the potential to bring everyone back into the fold. And they went and hired one of the best filmmakers in Hollywood to make it.
Okay, but this is a question that you brought up a couple of weeks ago, which I think is a really important question. What happens if Indiana Jones flops?
Then they fire James Mangold.
But I mean, like, why would you make this announcement before he's making a Lucasfilm movie right now? Why do you just wait and make this announcement?
So clearly Lucasfilm is really happy. They've seen the movie. It's been in front of test groups.
Honey, though, don't you remember how happy everyone was with Eternals? It was the greatest thing ever.
They certainly tried to convince
Never
us
seen
that
a
it was.
Marvel movie
Okay,
this
so
phenomenal before.
okay, so the difference there is what a studio's telling you verbally and the actions that they're taking.
Yeah.
They're taking actions based on this movie being really good. Like they're saying they're already handing him the keys to their most prized possession, right?
Right.
Like he did they're happy enough with Indiana Jones to hand him the keys to creating an entire new era of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like that's different than, hey, we've got this movie coming out and we just want you to know it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Right? It's the best thing you'll ever see. It's got sex in it and like I'm sorry, like the Eternals, like the marketing for the Eternals was literally
abysmal.
The marketing was worse. I mean, the movie's very mid.
The movie's fine. It's not
but there's nothing special. I think there's some cool characters, but I think honestly, like the marketing was worse than the movie.
Oh, the marketing was diversity and sex. That was the marketing. That was the whole marketing campaign.
And then Rings of Power turns around and tries the same marketing tactic.
Rings of Power, diversity and intimacy coordinators.
And at the end of the day, that wasn't even a problem in the like Rings of Power is excellent. Mm-hmm. But the media almost destroyed it completely
before it came out
with all that crap. Mm-hmm. But the thing is Amazon was allowing some of that to be pushed. They had that horrible roundtable discussion with fake fans, like these mega fans that had clearly never picked up a Tolkien book, like ever, and probably had never even seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah, because they just didn't know basic facts about the story. Right. Like, why would you put that out there? Not only did they put it out there, they had different groups and put it out there in like every conceivable language. Like, and they were all like, it was like this super fan, but he's reading the same script as this guy that's reading it in this other language. Like, do you think we're that stupid? Like the internet, like it's like
have you heard of the internet? There were bilingual people in the world.
There was like right. Once upon a time, you could release this thing in English and release it in Japan with the exact same script, and nobody would ever know, right?
No more.
But why? Why did you do that? But like, I don't know the marketing machine. But I'm feeling good about Indiana Jones based on the fact that they handed James Mangold the keys to Star Wars. Because let's be honest, like I think the Rey thing, like I don't have a tremendous amount of confidence in the person running that. Like I love Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel is really good because Iman Vellani is, like I said, she's charm incarnate.
Perfect, absolutely.
Like you could put her in anything and she's going to make it better. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe that. Like she's going to be huge.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I was so confident that they couldn't cancel these 3 films, but honestly, now with the writer's
strike, all bets are off for everything.
Yeah, so we don't. I mean,
like anything that's been announced and hadn't been, man. Like they're like, oh, the next season of Stranger Things. After the writer, I'm like,
yeah, no, they shut that one down.
Give it up.
Like one of the only things that didn't shut down was, like Rings of Power decided to push through. Mm-hmm. Now Rings of Power was like almost done filming.
There were a couple of things that were almost done filming that they went ahead and just push through, but not most things.
No, like we've got to wait on like all the kids from Stranger Things and Cobra Kai are all going to be like in their 40s by the time we see the final season. I don't know. I'm hoping, like I had high hopes that this writer strike, like these studios are just now recovering from COVID,
right?
And so I looked at it and went, oh, it's in the studios are just now, like they're not even fully back on their feet from COVID. They're just now, the theaters coming back alive. Production is picking up all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really just now reaching this point where we can call things normal again.
Right.
And then you get a writer's strike. And so I think, it's in everybody's best interest to solve this quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start seeing stuff earlier this week that's like, hey, don't expect this writer's strike to end anytime soon. It's like,
mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, that's not what we wanted to hear.
Right. So
yeah. I really hoped that it was going to be like, all right, we kind of like they with the IATSE strike, like, all right, we worked out our differences before the thing got really bad, and now we're gonna move on.
Yeah.
But I mean, the last writer's strike was a long. It was a thing.
The last one lasted, the big one, the one everybody talks about, was what, like 9 months, right?
I don't even remember. I mean, it felt like forever, and I just
I don't know how long it was, but it affected everything for like 2 years.
But how much more reality TV can the world endure?
Well, see, that's the problem. Is all the is well, see, the studios have been talking for a couple of years about how they've been stockpiling scripts in case this ever happened. Well, apparently there's a flaw in that whole plan. I don't know what it was.
The flaw is,
well, they don't have anybody to doctor scripts.
They have nobody to fix them whenever it doesn't actually work.
Right.
And the thing is, anyone who has any aspirations of ever being credited as a writer isn't going to touch it.
Yeah.
Directors,
well, that's the
PAs,
thing.
if they someday want to be a writer, they don't want to get blackballed by the Writers Guild.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, you can hire somebody, but that person is going to work your job, and when this is over with, they'll never work again. So
it's not a good plan. It doesn't bode well.
So anyway, as far as the movies, which one are you most excited about?
Most excited about? I don't know. I really do enjoy Ray. I really hope that if we get a Ray movie, that we actually get a Ray and Finn project.
Yeah, well, that's the rumor that he's back on board as well. Although there are other rumors, there's been several rumors. That's all rumor at this point, but it is written, and some of these rumors came from. One of these rumors came from Jeff Snyder, the same person that predicted that, or announced like 2 days before Celebration that Lucasfilm was going to announce 3 movies. Right. So like this is not someone who's just making crap up. This is someone who's actually
seems to have good.
Well, he's got connections. Like his stuff's usually on point. Usually if he's wrong, it's because something changed, not because he had bad info.
Right.
I believe, and I could be wrong, so someone correct me in the comments if I am wrong, but I believe that he was one of the people that said that, yeah, this movie is going to be, so Rey is refounding the Jedi Order 15 years after Rise of Skywalker, but that she's not the main character.
And that's definitely an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Well, I think, honestly, even if they make a movie with her as the main character, I think that's a smart move. We can, because as much as I liked Rey and I liked Finn, both of their stories have major flaws. And so this is a chance to kind of like reacclimate people, like kind of redirect her story and reacclimate people to her with someone else as the main character.
And I think,
and I'm assuming a student.
Yeah, I mean that
so Finn could actually be the main character. We hadn't heard any different there.
And I think John Boyega has enough clout at this point that he could be like, if I'm coming back, I'm a Jedi, basically.
Oh, I think 100%. I think that's where they left us with him. I think 100%. If he's coming back, we're going to see him with a lightsaber. I mean, it's 15 years later. He's a Jedi Knight by this point.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I think there's all sorts of interesting stories. I mean, we've talked about things where, the potential for other sects of Jedi
Yeah.
Around the galaxy. So it could be Rey's Jedi and some others. Because partially we're going to see what Ahsoka does in this.
Right.
Next. And presumably, I still have high hopes that Luke had surviving students.
I mean, somewhere, right? They're surely not all.
And we know Grogu will be around.
Right.
Now, Grogu may not have anything to do with the Jedi whatsoever.
Maybe Grogu's a Sith.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
He's a Knight of Ren.
So, if you made him a Sith, he would officially. Which one of our kids? They had the Clone Wars episode with Dark Yoda.
Yeah.
And they called him the Yucky.
The Yucky. Yes.
They were it was Elijah, and he was only like 3. And he was like very upset about the Yucky.
Not a fan of the Yucky.
So I mean, Sith Grogu is basically the Yucky, I guess.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I don't know. I think that movie has a lot of potential. We'll see what happens. I think that'll be the first movie we get. I mean, I think Filoni's project will come fairly quick. But it's going to be a matter of, and the one thing I liked when he was talking about it, because this is Dave Filoni's project,
right?
Ahsoka is Dave Filoni's project, but when he was talking about it, he kept talking about, John and he's so clearly,
right?
Jon Favreau is still involved, which is good because
we like to hear.
You're coupling one of the best storytellers in Star Wars with one of the best movie makers out there. So I still think that's a terrific combo. And I think moving Favreau, letting him make at least somewhat involved with a Star Wars movie is a good thing because he's doing fine at TV, but clearly he's a movie maker.
Right. Yeah.
Not that he hasn't done some TV, but he's mostly a movie maker.
So I think that is probably the one that I'm just the most confident that it will be made and that I will like it. Not that I don't think that maybe even some of the other things have more potential in some ways, but this one I feel like is the thing we know. So
I have to ask a question.
Okay.
This will rile someone up, depending on who listens to this show. It won't rile you up. So the general complaint about this movie is that they're giving Luke Skywalker's expanded universe story to Rey.
Has anyone looked at Mark Hamill lately?
I mean,
okay.
The truth is that if you have a problem with the fact that we never got a Luke Skywalker post Return of the Jedi movie,
you should have seen Solo in the theater.
Well, not just that. It's really not just that. If you wanted to see Mark Hamill playing a role refounding the Jedi Order 5 years after Return of the Jedi, you are blaming the wrong person.
100%.
Blame George Lucas.
Absolutely.
Sure, George had his reasons for not making another movie right away, although he was making the Clone Wars and he was working on several TV series. So everybody's saying that, he was just so hurt
jaded
after doing the prequels. Well, I mean, he had already waited too long by the prequels. Let's be honest. Movie should have been made in the early 90s at the latest.
When they released the special editions in theaters, I thought I was getting episode 7. Yeah. I was very disappointed. I was a very disappointed little confused child. Was like, I've seen this movie. I mean, it was still a good movie, but
it's got weird stuff in it now, but I've seen it.
Got weird, but this is not what I thought. I thought I was getting the next thing.
Yeah. So
30 years ago.
But the truth is, for everybody that wanted post Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker, that's George's fault.
Everybody who wanted an Heir to the Empire movie,
this is the closest you're going to get.
And here's the thing. So
it is Filoni's project.
There are only 2 options for making that movie about that some people, a certain contingent of people want. And it's to recast the character.
And nobody wants that.
And nobody wants that, or to make the entire thing with the DH Mark Hamill. And
which is way too expensive.
It's way too expensive, and it's not there.
No.
It is not there. Unless they're going to do something animated.
So now, animated.
They can make it animated.
I'm all on board for an animated series to cover that era. The problem is they've already changed the character so much. Mm-hmm. Like, we clearly get something like that version of Luke for a little while. Mm-hmm. But and you can still do a lot of it. But the Heir to the Empire stuff, unless Luke Skywalker shows up in Filoni's movie, you're not getting that part. And the truth is I think that they don't want to do the de-aging and the deep fake stuff because it's very expensive to do well. Mm-hmm. And so every second that they literally have to count the seconds he's on screen. Mm-hmm. Or you recast it. And I think that recasting, I don't think they have any interest in recasting after the Solo debacle.
Absolutely, which is a shame.
And I don't even think that was the major problem with Solo, but it's what gets blamed.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. I think that's why a lot of people did not go in for the movie, period, was because they didn't want to see somebody else be Han Solo. I mean, but you also got to see Donald Glover be Lando Calrissian.
And there is a rumored Donald Glover project in the works.
I mean, like, you missed out. And I think that Alden Ehrenreich did an excellent job as Han Solo. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I get the people that didn't like it. I mean, because it's not Harrison Ford.
No, he's not Harrison Ford.
Nobody's
Harrison Ford. So, but clearly,
like, they could have gotten someone that fit the physical build a little better than Alden did. But the truth is it's of the movies that. So, if you want to be real honest about comparing a movie to the original trilogy, it's the most like the original trilogy of anything Disney's made.
Absolutely,
including Rogue One, which I love. It's still my favorite of the Disney era stuff.
Yeah.
And it's great, but it is different than, it flows into the original trilogy really nicely.
Yeah.
But it's more intense than the original trilogy.
Yeah. It ends less happily.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. I think Luke's off the table.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think that was their experiment with recasting.
I think the only time we're really ever going to see Luke again, if we don't see him in Filoni's project. Now, if you can recast him and do it convincingly, and there are a couple of actors out there that the core fandom has been clamoring for, and so if you go get Sebastian Stan, I actually think a lot of people would jump on board with that.
Yeah.
Like, they've got these couple of unknowns that were kind of doing it with during The Mandalorian. That was fine. You cast one of those guys as Luke Skywalker for the movie, it ain't, I mean, nobody's biting. You cast Sebastian Stan, and I think people bite.
Yeah. And Sebastian Stan has aged noticeably in the past couple of years. So he definitely, you could buy him as 15 years after Jedi Luke. You know, a lot more than even 5 years ago, I think you could have.
Yeah. So I think that movie's already got its detractors, which is stupid.
And honestly, isn't that just the story of everything?
Everything.
Like, it's like, we don't judge anything on its merits anymore. We just judge it on how we feel about the dialogue surrounding it when it's first announced.
Yeah. But I think that is the movie with the potential for so as far as box office numbers, I think the biggest appeal. I think that one does big. I think that Filoni's movie will do well, but not everybody's watching Disney Plus.
Right.
Like a lot of people don't know what's going on with these characters. They see the merchandise out there, but they don't.
Right.
I mean, which kind of leads me to something I've been complaining about a lot here the last few weeks is release this crap on physical media, please.
Yeah.
Like it makes no sense at this point. Like season 3 of The Mandalorian, sure, don't release that. Wait 6 months, 9 months, even a year. Season 1 and 2, nobody's signing up for your service right now because of season 1 of The Mandalorian.
Right. Yeah.
This and that may be something they haven't figured out yet, is that this service that the drive on
the novelty has an expiration date.
Well, but this drive for streaming services is all about what did you give me this week? Like exactly. what can you give me now?
What's new on Netflix this month?
Right. So that has no real draw unless they're going to hold out some hope that everybody's going to go watch 3 seasons of The Mandalorian and a season of Ahsoka and possibly Skeleton Crew just so they can understand this movie.
No, I think people are getting tired of that.
No, yeah, I think that's one of the things going on with Marvel right now. I think Guardians sort of potentially breaks us out of that slump. Guardians is easily the best Marvel movie since Endgame. It's not even close.
Yeah.
It may be the best of the Guardians films.
And it
elevates the other two.
It also did a good job of, I think it gave you enough information that you could have just seen it without having to see every 37 movies that came before it.
Well, Guardians has always been on it. It's off on its own. So, you know, that where his character showed up in Infinity War and Endgame was basically someone else playing with his toys.
Right.
Which is there's a kind of a joke right now that that's the only reason that he had Nebula steal Bucky's arm, was because it just creates a problem for whoever has to deal with Bucky next.
Right.
Like, because they killed off Gamora.
Right.
And we're not going to get into this right now because we are going to do a show on this here pretty soon. But like, that's funny that, like, because they killed Gamora. Like, there's this thing right now with Star-Lord not having his mask. Right. Why did Star-Lord have his mask? Well, if you recall, it was destroyed in Guardians 2.
Okay. Yeah.
And then he suddenly had it again in Infinity War. And so James Gunn just, like, he came out after and said, oh, he left it in the drawer on Nowhere. Like, he didn't have time to grab it, which is fine. That works. You know, whatever. Plot hole solved. But the truth is that they broke it in Guardians 2, and he just didn't want to put it back in there.
Yeah.
But he wasn't going to say that.
It was a little bit like that pissing contest going on between Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams. And
that's one of the biggest pissing contests in the history of movie making. Like,
the moral of this story is pissing contests do not benefit the viewer.
No, well, at least this was done in mostly in jest. Like, you know, theirs was not.
Yeah, no.
So anyway, I do think that the one that you talked about, the Rey movie, is the one with the potential to make the most money. That's the one that puts Star Wars back on top if it's good. Like, that's the one that can undo all the damage.
Right. Most of the damage.
But the potential to be the next really, really big thing is this James Mangold movie. To see the origin of the Jedi. My fear is they said we're basically like the origin of the Force. And I was like, no, please, for the love of God, don't do that. Because, like, I'm fine with seeing the first Jedi, but, like, we have all this story in canon that the Jedi are not the first Force user. So, please, for the love of God, don't do the first Force user or the origin of the Force. The Force needs to be as old as the galaxy itself.
Right, absolutely.
So that's one of those things where I'm just kind of hoping that someone said that
someone misspoke,
and someone did, and Dave Filoni or someone else went, hold on, wait a second. That is, I think that's the one I'm most excited about, because it's really the first one to try to move away. So there's a problem with the Rey movie, right? They said the end of the Skywalker saga, and then they made her a Skywalker, and now we're going to do a Rey movie. Is this still the Skywalker saga? It still involves a Skywalker. How do we are we reopening the door?
They've just got to they've just got to stop saying stuff that they're just like say things, and it's like, well, now what are you going to do with that?
Right.
And they went about the Skywalker saga, and it's like nothing about the Skywalkers. And they got to the end, and they're like, and Rey Skywalker, which was fine. Like I didn't.
No, I didn't freak out about that or anything. But like now, you said, well, this is you even advertised it this way, right? The end of the Skywalker saga, which we didn't actually say that this was Skywalker saga until the second movie.
Right.
We didn't say that in the marketing for the first one for The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
It was when we got to the second one that we started advertising it as the next chapter in the Skywalker saga. And so now you advertise the third one as the finale, the end of the Skywalker saga.
The trilogy of trilogies.
And then you make another movie with Rey Skywalker. So which is it? I'll just say they should have stuck with this trilogy. The Return of the Jedi was the end of the Skywalker saga, and let this new movie. I'd really still just absolutely insist if you had let this trilogy, the sequel trilogy, be its own thing.
Absolutely.
And don't even involve the original cast. Move it further in the future, they're all dead. I don't care. Like at this point, we're not getting the version of those characters we want anyway, so just don't put them in and tell a new story, and it's mostly much better.
Yeah.
Mostly because the problem is the big problem most people initially had was the treatment of those characters. So just don't put them in there.
Yep, I agree.
So yeah, that's going to be interesting that it's part of the Skywalker saga now. Like what's the answer? Is it or isn't it? I don't know. I've seen some really weird rumors for that already. That she's going to be Rey, that she's still really Rey Palpatine, and that she's going to be Darkseid when we see her again. I'm like, did y'all watch? Like, I know you didn't love the movie, but did you watch it? Because we've moved past her temptation to the dark side. Like, get over it. So non-movie stuff. I'm really excited about the 3 movies if they happen.
Yeah.
So non-movie stuff. We're going to move through these fairly quick. Andor season 2, they got a teaser trailer. We didn't get to see that, but it's coming. I feel like, and it's going to apparently lead right up to this season. It's going to lead right up to the scene where we first meet Cassian in Rogue One.
Okay, awesome.
Which
oh wow, so this will be it.
This will be it. We're going to get K2SO. We're going to get all that stuff. I hope that it continues on the stride. It felt more like Star Wars as we got to the end, and it's like I liked Andor fine. The last 5 episodes is really much better than the rest of it. I really enjoyed the last 5 episodes. It does still create one of those things with like Star Wars is for kids, but let's put more violence in it. Star Wars is kids. Let's I still have that, and that's going to bring me to a point here in a second. I'm excited for Andor season 2. We did get an announcement about, or there was some stuff about the Acolyte. This show terrifies me as a fan, because I think this is going to be the Last Jedi 2.0. I think this is going to just rip the fandom in half.
Yeah.
They're building it to be that. They're building it along. They went and got that's the thing. It's like, I hate it when I see this person's making this movie and like their qualifications are that they're an activist. That's like, good grief. When did that become a qualification to make a movie or a TV show?
Yeah.
Um, Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant making this one, former personal assistant.
Oh, joy.
But this one is going to be divisive. I'm convinced. They're really anxious to play around with Force users that aren't Jedi or Sith, which is okay at face value, but it depends on what that is. I mean, we're seeing stuff in Visions. We're kind of working our way through Visions right now.
And I have thoughts. There's a whole
and we're going to do a whole episode on Visions. We're going to do 2 whole episodes because we're going to do one with the kids as well, because their thoughts on it are about like mine. Iana keeps looking at me and going, "This is stupid." And it's like, that's not the reaction you want from the 13-year-old on this show who loves Star Wars. And she really doesn't like Visions very much.
Yeah.
Now we did watch 2 episodes tonight that everybody seemed to like. But I'm afraid that this show is going to have the problem some of these have had, where they don't understand the Jedi or the Sith. They don't understand the light and the dark. They don't understand what is a good guy at all.
Right.
Like, we just want to blur the lines as much as possible.
I mean, there have definitely been some things where it's like the good guy is the one who is out for number 1.
Yeah.
When did that become the good guy?
Right. Anger, selfishness, all these things, and these are our good guys in Visions, and it's like, fine, if you want to do a show with a if you want to go make something with an anti-hero that's a little bit just out for himself, he'll do the right thing as long as it benefits him in some way. Or he'll do the right thing, but maybe not in the way that maybe not in the way Captain America or Superman would do it.
Right. Yeah.
The Punisher, right? That's the go-to. I think anti-hero. He'll do the right thing. It may just be killing everyone, but he'll get it done.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, I'm really concerned, like, and this is something we've been talking a lot about here, and working on some episodes. This is something I want to bring in some guests on and talk about the religious nature of Star Wars, and not just Star Wars. We'll probably actually do this on the Science Fictionary, so we can talk, because we're going to talk Star Wars, but just in general, the importance of, in this world that we live in, of telling stories where your good guys are good, and they're noticeably good, and they have characteristics that you want to emulate. Right. Like that's something, like, everybody wants these, gray area characters
because they're so edgy and interesting.
And it's like, look, you can tell gray area characters, but I think that there's still a big place, especially in shows that are, as people want to continually point out, are for kids. Like, why do we want to put gray characters, morally gray characters in? Look, I'm going to be the first to tell you, like, I don't think that morally gray necessarily exists. Like, I think it's like there might be a moment where you're in the middle, but you can't stay there.
Right.
You can't just exist in the middle, especially as a Force user in Star Wars. That doesn't work. Like, we want to do Gray Jedi, right? Gray Jedi, so there's 2 versions of Gray Jedi. We've talked about this, might get into, but this idea that you can use the light and the dark. This is something we've seen in Visions that I don't like. This we're playing, so we can use the light and the dark side of the Force, and as long as we use them in a balance, we're okay. That's not a thing.
No.
The dark side of the Force has consequences. There are consequences for using those powers, and they're not good.
Right.
And I think that we're going to see a lot of these really sort of modern takes on a hero, modern takes on the light and the dark, and morals in general. Because the whole morally gray thing is not really so much a rejection of it's a rejection of the light. is what it is. It's a rejection of the idea that anything is morally good.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, lots of thoughts on that.
Yeah, and we're going to get deep on that one. That's going to be one of the more philosophically deep conversations that we've explored here, which is why we're taking our time. And I've got to kind of seek out
other people who
other
have
people
these conversations.
Yeah, it's not the kind of conversation everybody likes to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can have without getting fighting angry. But no, we're gonna pursue this probably on the Science Fictionary, but here on YouTube. This will definitely be one of our shows here on YouTube. And I don't know. I'm very concerned about the Acolyte. Everybody that has listened to this show knows my biggest complaint about The Last Jedi is what it did to the fandom.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of things in that movie I don't like. But my opinion of it continues to diminish, not because of the movie itself, but because of what it did to the fandom. Like, because I don't just, I have not just always loved this franchise, but the fandom that was built around it. And that movie did irreparable damage. Like, I say irreparable. Time heals all wounds, right? And eventually we will move far enough past that. We'll put hopefully enough good material out there that The Last Jedi will that the people that really, really hate it, it'll just be something that you just kind of mention. Oh yeah, that one.
I mean, it's just the one we don't watch. I mean, like there are people who really, really hated the prequels, and they've become less and less loud.
That's true, but I think that what people don't like about them is different.
Oh, for sure, but the fact remains that they were really derided for a long time.
I think, and it's like, and everybody's like, oh, it's like people like the prequels more than they did. I don't think that's true. I think that the people that really hate the prequels just don't say as much anymore.
Yeah, which is
because I still talk to people all the time that don't like the prequels.
Yeah, I think that, but they'll just.
I have that argument all the time. I love the prequels.
I just think there'll be less.
I don't think the prequels are perfect movies. Like the original trilogy is still the top of this franchise. Like, there's nothing out there right now that's going to knock the original trilogy off its platform. It's, depending on which day you ask me, it's either the first or the second greatest movie trilogy ever made.
Yeah.
And so
right up there with Lord of the Rings, depending on what mood you're in.
Yeah. But they tell very similar stories.
Yeah, for sure.
Was that you telling me
That was me telling you that my allergies are kicking in and my eyes are itching. So unless you want to see me pull one of them out on a YouTube video.
Okay, we need to talk a couple of things real quick.
Okay.
We had an announcement about Visions. It's out now. Tales of the Jedi, which was fine. I don't even remember anything about it. Well, no, Tales of the Jedi was the one they did that we had a few months ago.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed
that. And they were fine. Honestly, don't remember a lot about them except for the Count Dooku episodes.
Yeah.
They were fun. They were good. Like I didn't think anything was wrong. I thought they were good, but I should revisit them.
Yeah.
We are getting a second season. The Bad Batch is coming back, third and final season, which is good. Bad Batch has been really good. I know a lot of people thought it was better than The Mandalorian, but there were some really good episodes of The Bad Batch. The first 3 or 4 episodes of The Bad Batch this year sucked.
Yeah, I wasn't.
It took a little while to find its footing.
Yeah.
So we talked about the Acolyte. So the other big one, the Skeleton Crew. This was, of course, the big announcement this year. It's well on its way to being done. Jude Law coming in to lead, which is a major get.
Jude Law was actually at Celebration, wasn't he?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure. Some of that
he was very
coming
sick.
in and out of consciousness during Celebration.
Yeah.
But they got their first look at it
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
So we're getting something. They say it's got kids in it. They're teenagers. They kind of build it like young kids initially, but it's going to be more teenagers. And basically, what I saw was it's got kids in it, but it's not necessarily for kids.
Yeah.
Like I'm hearing a little more Andorish in nature, which I think is probably good depending on what they mean. Like a little more serious, like a little more stakes. Although I still think that The Mandalorian is way more true to the notes of the original trilogy than Andor. And as someone who does want my kids to be able to watch it and take away from it,
right?
They haven't finished Andor. I don't know if you're aware of that, because they didn't like. They only watched like 3 or 4 episodes in, and they didn't like it.
Yeah, that's right.
And I didn't like it at that point either. In fact, that was about the point where I stayed up till 2 a.m. to watch an episode. Got really pissed off. Because I stayed up that late and was very disappointed. Because I kept thinking it's going to get better. It's going to get better. I think it was that 4th episode.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple of things on Disney Plus the past couple of months that we were planning to watch with the kids. That and She-Hulk.
Yeah.
That's another one that was like.
But okay. I'm liking everything I'm hearing about Skeleton Crew. It's going to be set in the same time as our other, Ahsoka and the Mandoverse. Yeah, and I mean this is part of this. From what I understand, Jon Favreau has some reign over this.
Okay.
It's being made by. I'm going to blank on his name. He made the last. He may have made all the Spider-Man movies for Disney. John Watts.
John Watts. I mean, I'm excited. There's nothing that makes me think, "Ooh, I'm worried about this."
No, I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I was worried a little while. There was a moment where I was like, "Oh, it could be way too kiddie."
Yeah.
But it appears that it's going to be interesting. I think everybody's going to be happy with Jude Law's character, because apparently he's someone that it's going to take us a while to learn exactly where he stands as far as, and they're not saying whether he's good or bad, but he might just not be the nicest person. Might be a little rough around the edges.
That's kind of what Jude Law is. I mean, he just did Captain Hook, so that's kind of what he's doing at the moment.
The other thing, let's see, there was one more thing we needed to mention. What was it? Or was that it? Skeleton Crew. We had an amazing Ahsoka trailer. Since your allergies are about to get you, we won't go deep into that, but that trailer is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really looking forward to that one. I want a full look at Thrawn. I think they got to look at Thrawn at Celebration, but we didn't.
Got to look at the back of his head.
Right. I'm really excited for this. This is going to be the first really big test for Dave Filoni in live action. Like he's sort of had his hand held through the other stuff he's made. Mostly been good. Dave is a different kind of storyteller. He's very something between George Lucas and Tolkien in the way he tells stories, where he sort of gets caught up in giving a little too much detail over here.
You ever read Les Mis?
Kind of meanders around.
Why are we telling this story? Oh, wait.
Okay, yeah.
It is irrelevant. But unlike Les Mis, it may be relevant 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Most of those stories.
So what I hope is that he understands that you've got this 8 episodes. This isn't no longer full-length seasons of Rebels or full-length seasons of Clone Wars. Like, less meandering.
And I think that's
and the thing is, I love those. I love that kind of storytelling. It's why I've never minded the side quest that everybody gets so upset about, because to me they're not necessarily side quests. They're world building.
Funny thing though, most of the most derided episodes of those animated shows are our kids' favorites. They still talk about droids in distress and how much they like droids You remember how much everybody bitched about that when it came out?
Everybody did. Space whales too.
Yes, the space whales. Kids love space
Elijah in particular loved the space whales. And he was pretty little at the time, but I mean, like, that was his favorite episode. Like, I'm not going to argue with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, I'm not here to tell anybody what your favorite episode ought to be. Even my children, they're allowed to have their own. They like the sequel trilogies. it's their first theater Star Wars, and they like it.
Yeah.
And I think they recognize some of the problems with it, but they like it, and that's fine. That's their first Star Wars experience. Theater Star Wars. They were big Star Wars fans long before the sequel trilogy, but like, there's something special about that first.
For sure.
That first one you get to see in the theater.
Yeah, the one that's coming out whenever you're, growing up.
It's those when you're at an impressionable age. So I'll be at the impressionable age of like 45 when James Mangold's movie comes out. So please make it good, so that it impresses on me the right thing.
So let it be written, right? So let it be done.
Yeah. So
that's a vastly underused quote, by the way. I was trying to find a "so let it be written, so let it be done" gif, and I was like, why? Is this? I mean, does everybody not just use that in regular conversation?
I guess not.
Apparently not. It's a shame. Everybody go back and watch the Ten Commandments.
Man, we got all kinds of stuff scrolling on the bottom down here. Look at that.
Oh, looky
Palpatine Returned. I haven't done that one in a while. You can check out the Red 5 Network, bio.link/Red5.
It's all true.
Lots of good stuff over there. So much so that I'm not even sure what else over there anymore, but it's a lot of podcasts. A lot of good stuff to check out.
For sure.
So go do that. We could do a Rings of Power review real quick. You want to do a Rings of Power review?
Yes, I want Rings of Power back.
Well, we're working on getting some guests to talk some Rings of Power, so that we don't have to, wait for all the new stuff.
I love Rings of Power.
It only has one. It's got one flaw, and I'm hoping they just
short. Not really.
That was a flaw. That's a flaw with everything these days. Everything's too short. No, that whole thing where like they just missed the memo that the moon and the sun are the light of the two trees, and that like
I said, because that was Tolkien's thing, that was his problem with the Lord of the Rings, is that they were too short.
Yeah.
A complaint that has been noted by other people as well. Too short. Yeah.
All right. So remember, help us scream at everyone about making sure that eventually they bring Star Wars Celebration to New Orleans.
Because you all want to come to New Orleans. New Orleans is great. New Orleans is fun. Limitless, endless places to go.
Hey, and if it's in New Orleans, we'll definitely be there and we'll hang out with you.
Yes. See?
We'll show you around New Orleans. Yeah, we'll take you to the non-touristy good restaurants.
Good plan. You heard it here first, folks.
And the non-scary, the non-touristy bars, because the touristy bars are sketchy as hell.
Bourbon Street?
No, go a street over. Don't go to Bourbon Street.
Yeah, true story. All right, friends. Well, thanks for coming and listening us to.
Wow. What happened?
My words don't work no more. Thanks for coming and listening to us talk about Star Wars, one of our favorite things.
Yep. You can find us, as always, on Twitter at @sci_fictionary. Or this was actually, of course, not Radio Underground, so find us at crew_podcast. That's CRU_podcast. You can find us at both. I'm back and forth between both all day.
Sure.
And let's see, is there anything else? We already plugged Red 5.
Already plugged Red 5.
And go to our TeePublic page. I've got some good stuff over there.
It's true.
Not just ours. I've got some good stuff curated there, including a few other Red 5 shows shirts that you can find there. Particularly, I've got several things for the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast, and probably even a Red 5 design or two.
You need to make an Adventures in Locksmithing shirt for Nick.
Yeah, Nick needs some shirts.
It's true.
We would even get some and wear them on the show.
It's true.
But that's going to do it for this episode of Coruscant Radio Underground. Thank you so much for hanging out. Real quick, Marisha, where can people find you?
Right here.
Right here. She's not going to give you her Instagram tonight, apparently.
I haven't posted on it in like 6 months. It just seems a little ridiculous.
You've been on Twitter more lately, though.
It's all right. I'm P. Padawans on Twitter.
All right, guys. That's going to do it for tonight. Thank you for hanging out. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.